It's 6 p.m. on a Thursday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's first begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye says denuclearization talks with North Korea are at a dead end, and it's time to focus on international efforts to curb the regime's nuclear ambitions. Countries party to the UN's nuclear test ban treaty urged the holdouts to ratify the deal. They've also singled out North Korea and condemned its recent nuclear tests. On the third day of Parliament's interpellation session, top government officials here in Korea were grilled over restructuring efforts in the nation's shipping and shipbuilding industries. President Park Geun-hye has hinted at a stronger stance on North Korea, including new sanctions on the regime. She also predicted the reclusive state will, quote, not return to the table for dialogue. Song Ji-sun starts us off.
President Park said the worst scenario possible that North Korea, with its advanced nuclear and missile capabilities, could carry out any type of provocation is becoming a reality. She also predicted that Pyongyang will no longer show for denuclearization talks. President Park said that the money previously given to North Korea to engage in dialogue has been funneled into its nuclear program and condemned the North's continued efforts to develop weapons of mass destruction, while its people are suffering from some of the worst flood damage in years.
이제 북한은 더 이상 핵 포기를 위한 대화의 장에 나오지 않을 것이며 핵과 미사일 등의 도발은 더욱 심화될 것이라고 생각합니다. 그래서 정부는 우선 유엔 안보리에서 북한의 핵 포기를 실질적으로 강제할 수 있는 국제사회의 새롭고 강력한 제재 도출에 최선을 다하면서 이와 별도로 여러 나라들과 함께 대북 압박을 위해 필요한 독자적 조치도 취해 나갈 것입니다.
Vying to do all she can to curb the regime's obsession with its nuclear program, President Park also pledged to strengthen the South Korea-U.S. alliance to protect the nation, including deploying the U.S. missile defense system THAAD in South Korea and Washington's nuclear umbrella. President Park also called for thorough monitoring and measures to mitigate the potential impact on the South Korean economy of such uncertainties as an additional provocation from North Korea and a possible rate hike in December by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Parties to a global treaty banning nuclear testing have condemned North Korea for its latest nuclear tests. They also urged their peers at the UN to join the treaty and help expedite its ratification. Our Kwon So-hwa tells us more.
Meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly on Wednesday, around 40 foreign ministers who support the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty have condemned North Korea's recent nuclear test. They urged Pyongyang to not conduct any more tests and to completely halt its nuclear weapons program. The ministers issued a joint statement calling for the swift ratification of the treaty and appealed to all states to do their utmost to achieve its prompt entry into force. The CTBT, agreed upon 2 decades ago, aims to ban all nuclear explosions, whether for civilian or military use. 183 countries have signed it, and 166 have ratified it. China, the US, Iran, and North Korea are among those that haven't.
We see the CTBT meeting as having magnified the international community versus North Korea structure, following the North's series of nuclear threats.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se said in his speech at the meeting that it's disheartening the treaty has remained a, quote, sleeping beauty for such a long time. Yoon noted that the North has conducted 2 nuclear tests in this year alone and fired 22 missiles of various types. He also warned that these missiles can, quote, land on our heads within 4 to 5 minutes. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
The Korea Meteorological Administration has announced the results of its study of the recent seismic activity in the southeastern part of the peninsula. And though an aftershock stronger than the original quakes seem unlikely, the experts aren't sure how long these smaller tremors will continue. Hwang Ho-jun has the details.
It's been 10 days since the first earthquake jolted Gyeongju and was felt across the peninsula. And after Korea's meteorological agency dispatched a task force of experts to the city to analyze the effects of the quakes, they've now released their findings. The weather agency said on Thursday that an aftershock exceeding the 5.8 magnitude of the first quake is unlikely. But moderate tremors are likely to continue, possibly for months. As of this afternoon, 423 tremors have been detected. Meanwhile, the agency corrected the epicenter of the two magnitude 5+ earthquakes. The epicenter of the 5.1 quake was corrected from 9 kilometers southwest of the city to 8.2 kilometers away, while the epicenter of the 5.8 quake was corrected to 8.7 kilometers southwest of the city from the originally reported 8 kilometers. The examination will likely continue, as 9 of the 400+ aftershocks took place outside of the 10-kilometer perimeter of the region. Also, amid criticism of the text message alert system, which failed to immediately reach residents near the affected area, the KMA vowed to improve it by increasing the number of seismic monitoring stations over the next 2 years from the current 206 to 315. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
In the domestic political arena, safety concerns continue to grow, of course, after the two natural disasters that rattled the country, which is why officials in charge of the nation's nuclear power plants were bombarded with questions. Kim Young-gil has the latest from the National Assembly.
Lawmakers on Thursday urged nuclear power plant officials to undertake stronger earthquake safety measures, such as raising the height of seawalls, reinforcing the waterproofing at power plant structures, and conducting more regular stress tests on the facilities.
The government must complete thorough stress tests on nuclear plants located near the quake-hit region to relieve the public's anxiety.
Lawmakers also questioned the Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation's plan to build new nuclear reactors in the quake-hit area and urged it to suspend all reactors in the region until the current safety concerns are addressed.
It's very unfortunate that the Commission is only now, after the recent earthquakes, looking into whether to reconsider the construction of Units 5 and 6 of the Shin-Gori nuclear plants.
However, officials from the state-run electric power company said neither the Walsong nor Gori plants will be damaged by aftershocks or earthquakes with magnitudes of up to 6.5 because, unlike regular buildings, the facilities are built 20 meters into the ground. Amid such concerns, the Nuclear Safety and Security Commission said it will continue to put safety first.
We're doing the best we can to provide information about earthquakes to the public and to maintain the safety of all the nuclear power plants around the country.
Lawmakers from both the ruling and opposition parties said nuclear power plant safety should be a priority for the country and that guidelines should be set based on the worst-case scenario. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Also in the hot seat at the National Assembly, government officials over economy-related matters. It was day 3 of the parliamentary Q&A session. Here's our Shin Se-min.
Government officials face questions about their ongoing restructuring efforts in the shipping and shipbuilding industries as the National Assembly's 4-day interpellation session continued on Thursday. A lot of the intense questioning was focused on how the government has so far dealt with the financially troubled Hanjin Shipping. Korea's finance minister said that while it is heartbreaking to see the country's biggest shipper go under court receivership, it's not fair to put the burden on taxpayers. In addition, Yu and Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-an both said the government would do all it can to minimize the fallout from the logistical disruptions that are sure to come.
Already too much taxpayer money has been injected into a troubled shipping company. The government will work to implement emergency measures, including the deployment of extra cargo ships from Hyundai Merchant Marine.
Meanwhile, lawmakers from the country's 3 main rival parties had differing views on whether to increase the corporate tax and how effective it would be in revitalizing the economy. Opposition party lawmakers said the corporate tax should be increased, while ruling party lawmakers are opposed to the idea, saying it could lead to an exodus of local firms, making it difficult to attract direct foreign investment. The 4-day parliamentary Q&A session will wrap up on Friday with educational and social issues topping the agenda. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
looks like more help is on the way for Hanjin Shipping, which had been teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. The state-run Korea Development Bank has decided to lend the company an additional 50 billion won, or about $45 million to help it unload cargo stranded for weeks in ports around the world. The decision comes a day after Hanjin's biggest shareholder, Korean Air, agreed to extend about $54 million in loans, reportedly using Hanjin's accounts receivable as collateral. Following the news, shares of Hanjin Shipping on the local stock market surged by the daily limit of 30%. The U.S. Federal Reserve left its interest rates unchanged, but did hint at a rate hike by the end of the year. Following that news, shares climbed here in Korea. Geunhye has the numbers and more.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has decided to give its economy more room to knock out ashes from the last recession, although that was more than 7 years ago. The Fed kept its target rate steady on Wednesday at 0.25% to 0.5%. But it did express confidence about the economy, saying economic activity has picked up and the labor market has improved. Fed Chair Janet Yellen says the key to its latest decision was risks stemming from lack of inflation.
We all agree that the economy is making progress, that we are close to an unemployment rate that is one that's sustainable in the longer run. We all agree we are undershooting our inflation goal and that we want to make sure we stay on a course that raises that to 2%.
Given the mixed signals, the Fed was divided during this meeting, with 3 of the 10 voting monetary policymakers supporting a quarter-point rate hike. The dissent, analysts say, suggests a stronger shift towards monetary policy normalization before the year ends.
We would think that if they wanted to raise rates, they would want to support that. They would want to have a press conference afterwards to talk about that in full length. That next press conference is in December. If you look at expected futures and the expectations of that, it was at roughly 50% prior to today's meeting. It's increased slightly since then.
On the back of the Fed's rate freeze, coupled with BOJ's earlier decision to tweak its monetary easing policy, Korean shares traded higher on Thursday despite lurking uncertainties from Hanjin Shipping and Samsung's massive recall of its latest smartphones. While all this gives Korea's central bank more leeway to dive deeper from its record low key interest rate next month, analysts say there are other issues in the mix the BOK will want to consider.
Both the Bank of Korea and the government share concerns about the household debt problem. And considering that the extra budget is being implemented this month, the central bank will want to take some time to gauge the impact before it moves to cut rates.
Now what market watchers at home and abroad are keeping close tabs on is the U.S. presidential election in November that's forecast to largely affect monetary decisions not only in America but also in other countries worldwide. Hwangji-ae, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics announced it will extend the refund period for customers in Korea who bought a Galaxy Note 7 smartphone and want their money back. Customers who missed the original deadline, which was Monday, were left with the option of a replacement phone, but now refunds will be extended to September 30th. The decision comes after the Korean Agency for Technology and Standards asked a tech titan to supplement its recall plans for the new phone, which has been deemed a fire hazard. The standards agency also asked Samsung to examine the safety of all batteries before they're shipped and to send text messages on refunds and replacements to its customers. The CEO of Reckitt Benckiser formally apologized over its toxic humidifier disinfectants, which claimed hundreds of lives here in Korea. In a statement Wednesday, Rakesh Kapoor said he was sincerely sorry for the pain and irreparable damage Korean consumers have suffered. He then expressed regret over not being able to prevent the disaster, drawing a clear line of responsibility. Ox's chief made the remarks during a visit to Britain by a special Korean parliamentary committee probing the scandal. This is the first time the company's upper management has apologized to the victims and their families. The British firm had earlier outlined a compensation plan, but was asked to provide reasonable compensation in a transparent manner. Over in the United States, the governor of North Carolina declared a state of emergency in Charlotte. The decision was made as Violent protests continue for a second day following the fatal police shooting of a black man. Governor Pat McCrory said the National Guard and State Highway Patrol troopers would be dispatched to help restore order after peaceful demonstrations turned violent when a protester was shot and wounded. Police initially said the protester had died, but the city later tweeted that the person is in critical condition, adding he was shot by another civilian. Police claimed the man was shot after being told to drop a handgun in his possession, while the victim's family says he was unarmed and was holding a book. The sports ministers of South Korea, China, and Japan are holding their first ever joint meetings as all three countries prepare to host either the Summer or Winter Olympics in the coming years. The meetings began on Thursday in Korea's eastern county of Pyeongchang, which will host the Winter Games in 2018. The two-day gathering brings together Korea's Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, Jo Yoon-sun, China's Director Liu Peng, and Japan's Sports Minister Matsuno Hirokatsu. Also attending is the president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach. The event is aimed at boosting cooperation and exchanges in sports and successfully hosting the upcoming Olympics in each country. After the trilateral meeting on Friday morning, the three ministers are set to sign the Pyeongchang Declaration, which outlines the details on the three countries' sports cooperation. And that concludes our newscast for this hour. As always, thank you for watching.